So as a massive point-and-click adventure superfan, namely with Monkey Island and Broken Sword, this brand really should have been up my street. But for whatever reason, I just could not really get into the Five Nights at Freddy video game series. But that being said, I wanted to enter into this movie experience with a complete open mind. And there was so much hysteria and so much fan anticipation before the movie even came out that I kind of got excited just wanting to watch this film. But it was an interesting move by Universal, as for the first time since the pandemic, they were going to have a day-and-date release for Five Nights at Freddy's being in the theatrical box office as well as on Peacock. So it seemed as if they were signaling that this is definitely a streaming movie, and on that point I have to agree. This feels like a true streaming movie and doesn't really feel like a cinematic experience. But that being said, from a performance perspective, that strategy has seemed to be an absolutely incredible one, as this movie has tripled its original investment, which is just absolutely outstanding. What is also an interesting move is that at a time when loads of horror movies are truly entering into the R-rated space, and you would have thought that the premise of Five Nights at Freddy's really would have meant that it would also be an R-rated film, but an interesting move was that they made this PG-13. Maybe that contributed towards its success, as a lot of parents can take their kids to watch this film, which is an interesting move also from a Halloween perspective. But true horror aficionados are going to be pretty disappointed by this film, as whenever there is a gory moment, the camera just pans away and is just left to your imagination to kind of think what's going to happen next. And all the while there's very limited violence that takes place on screen, it's got a really involved plot. So you've got this main character, by the way, we'll talk about all of the actors in a minute, who is actually a really great character, but you can really feel all of his childhood trauma that he had to experience and endure when a stranger kidnapped his brother and drove off, and he just couldn't do anything to save him. And now he's got this tricky relationship with his sister, who is seeming to be the same age as his brother was when he was kidnapped. And then you have these animatronics that are seeming to get up to no good, and you've got this potential love interest with a policewoman, you've got this guy who is losing his career, so it's really having a lot of things going on. But in a funny way, it kind of all works together, as you are kind of engrossed in this storyline from all of the different angles. You're kind of like, what happened to this guy when he was young? How is he going to ever get over this trauma? Is he going to rebuild a relationship with his sister? What is happening with this love interest? What are all of these animatronics doing? This evil aunt that really doesn't care about his sister but kind of wants to get child benefit from her. Loads of stuff going on. And it does kind of have all of the aspects that you would want from a psychological thriller movie, in terms of being really gripping, really uncomfortable, really sinister, but like I said, not that scary, as a lot of that violent stuff takes place off screen. But now let's go through all of the actors one by one. So Josh Hutcherson is really good actually as Mike. Really interesting, as he was originally nearly going to play Peter Parker and Spider-Man, which would have really meant that the MCU would have taken a very different approach with their Spider-Man character if they would have gone down the Josh Hutcherson route, as he does kind of look a little bit like Peter Parker would do. But anyway, the Mike character, like I said, you can tell he's got so much trauma, and you really are with this guy, as he's pretty much in every single scene in this movie. And I think he's a really great lead character. You can immediately tell that, you know, this guy is suffering a lot, and he's never been able to move past the trauma that he had in his past. And if anything, he wants to continually live there in his dreams, as he's taking sleeping pills to force himself to go back into that space. And then when he is in that space, he's kind of reliving it. He's got these other new kid characters that are potentially going to help him solve the mystery. Like I said, his career is pretty much in tatters. That opening scene that you see that he's beating up this guy as you're thinking that he is kidnapping another child, all of that stuff I think was coming together really well, which then ultimately led him to now be the security guard at Five Nights at Freddy's. And just all of the craziness that takes place as this character is trying to piece all of the difficult things together is just so good. So I feel like Josh Hutcherson absolutely triumphs in this role. We've also got the love interest character brilliantly played by Elizabeth Lail as Vanessa, and I feel like she was so good. Firstly, she was so iconic as Beck in You. She was just absolutely flawless in that role, and it's really good here to see her playing a very different character. At first, she seems really innocent, as she's just a police officer that's kind of giving a little bit of advice and is kind of looking out for Mike. But then you really quickly realize that she actually knows a lot more about all of the dark and sinister things that are really taking place at Five Nights at Freddy's, and you're kind of quickly realizing that, you know, she definitely doesn't know a lot more than she is letting on. And there's always something a little bit off with this character, but then you do really realize what this is by the end of it. And I'm just really excited about Elizabeth Lail's future career as she is really building her star power. And then we of course have to talk about Matthew Lillard, who is a true horror icon from the first outstanding Scream movie. I wonder if they'll ever bring him back into the Scream franchise, as of course all of the fans have been demanding it. But anyway, I feel like it was really cool, speaking of Scream, to see all of the little Scream references here. And it's really obvious that Matthew Lillard, of course, filmed all of his scenes across a very short succession. They did kind of confirm that ahead of the film's release. And it's really, really cool, as you do get to see that Matthew Lillard gets to be really, really crazy. And all of his crazy moments were really, really good. Like I said, he is a true horror icon, so I'm sure that we will definitely get a sequel. I mean, this movie has performed so well that Universal are definitely going to greenlight multiple sequels, and Matthew Lillard did confirm that he has signed a minimum 3-movie deal, so I'm sure that we'll at least get a trilogy for this, and I'm sure, like I said, we'll get loads more. It'll turn into a massive franchise, just like a lot of other Halloween franchises are. There are definitely new characters that are introduced in every single game, so I wonder if they're just going to drop Josh Hutcherson and Elizabeth Lail and just have new characters that are introduced in every single movie, maybe making it into a little bit of an anthology and having certain recurring characters. But either way, Jason Blum can at least rest easy, as he's got a really successful franchise here after The Exorcist New Believer didn't do that well. But anyway, as far as Five Nights at Freddy's is concerned, I thought it was a really solid movie. There definitely could have been so many improvements made, but for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a solid 5.5 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of this movie? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.